What's going on YouTube? Josh here checking in. Today I'm going to be giving you guys a brief tutorial on the banded hip thrust. So this is a movement that, along with the many other glute exercises, was popularized by Bret Contreras, also known as the glute guy. Really smart dude. I'm going to post a link to his website below. So anyway, this movement is pretty excellent movement for basically two reasons. So the first reason is that there's a really good glute activation with this particular movement. So you'll see that certain individuals, they just have trouble, quote unquote, activating their glute. That so-called mind-muscle connection between, what their mind is telling them and what their body's actually doing. So for instance, you'll have a lot of people who do the barbell hip thrust and they just don't really feel that their glutes are really engaging. So if you have a lot of these people, you have them do the banded version of the hip thrust, and they tend to really feel the movement in their glutes. And that's primarily due to the fact that you get full glute activation when you're at full extension, and in this movement, since there's band tension, there's greatest tension at the top of the movement when your glutes are at full extension. So it essentially forces you to maximally activate the glutes at the top of the movement. So that's one aspect, the neural component, the mind-muscle connection, so to speak. And then also, it's a great accessory movement to hypertrophy the glutes, to, build up some size in the glutes and therefore eventually build up some strength. So as far as rep ranges that you'd want to use for this movement, I would generally recommend in the higher rep ranges. I really wouldn't shoot for anything under 6 repetitions for this movement. I know that some individuals go as high as up to 20 reps per set. So I would say anywhere from the 6 to 20 rep range would probably be a good place to start. I personally like to do around 10 to 12 reps for these sets. And keep in mind that, at first the movement might feel kind of strange, you're not used to doing it, so definitely start with lower band tension, but you would be surprised once you really incorporate this movement into your programming and your routine that you can add a significant amount of band tension. So a quick little disclaimer, this movement is not something that I would say is, foundational in any program. This is really an accessory movement. It will, help the glutes, like I said. It can be used especially with the goal of trying to improve the lockout on a deadlift where the glutes come into play. But this is really not something that you'd want to be incorporating if you're a beginner lifter. This is really, like I said, more for intermediate and advanced lifters. So let's get right to the tutorial.
The setup for the banded hip thrust requires that you have access to a squat rack with band pegs, or alternatively, you can get creative. So this is a rogue rack, and essentially I just use the orange pins that you see at the bottom are from a dip accessory station, and I just put those off to the side about 6 inches off the ground, and those serve as my band pegs. So if you don't have access to a system that you can essentially change the height of the band pegs, don't worry about it because you are using an elastic band, so even if it's really low to the ground, you're just going to have to push the band out of the way and slip underneath there. So you'll notice that I have a standard bench there set up pretty close to the band, and the reason for that is because at the start of the movement, you want the bottom of your shoulder blade just in contact with the top of the bench. The reason for that is as you perform the movement, you'll eventually be perfectly positioned so that way your upper back is essentially resting on the bench. Next thing to consider is going to be the positioning of the band. That's really simple because it's going to lay right in the hip crease. As far as the legs go, you want to take a stance that's just slightly wider than shoulder width, and as far as positioning the legs away from the butt, you essentially want to choose a stance that way when you're at the lockout, the top of the position, you are more or less at a 90-degree angle with your lower leg and the upper leg, as you can see here from the side position. When performing the movement, the goal is really just to thrust those hips up towards the ceiling, and as you're doing that, you want to be thinking about contracting the glutes. Now, when performing this movement, as opposed to simply going up and down very rapidly, it's to your benefit to hold the top contraction just for a split second there, as you see in this video. As far as hand position goes, that's really a matter of personal preference. In this case, you can see that the hands are across the chest. You can just as easily spread the hands all the way out along the bench. Now, one last thing I wanted to mention is that if you're a smaller person, you're a little bit shorter, you probably want to use either a lower bench or aerobic steps that are stacked to a lower height. Remember to start light with these because you want to be able to walk out of the gym. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to comment if you have any questions, and I'll catch you guys next time.